Hey everyone, welcome back to AliMonroe.com. It's a third-part series for creating a cartoon hammer. In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to create a character rig for the hammer. As of right now, our hammer is rather static. We can rotate the base and the top goes, and we could link the eyes to the head. However, we won't have any control over the head. And our bouncing, we don't have any squash or anything like that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and create a bone rig for this character. These lights. We can create a bone rig for this character. I have gone ahead and prepped a rig for us beforehand. And this is what our final result's going to be. I'll just reset our controls here. Okay, so what we have is our root control, which controls the squash and stretch of the bottom. You can rotate the object from this angle. You also have a head control, which will rotate the head. It will also control the spine of the model and also will allow itself to stretch away. We also have control over the teeth. So if we want to add some secondary animation, perhaps make this look like hair, then we can do that as well. And we also have a master control, which we can rotate, and this will be controlling the object altogether. Okay, so to create that, what we have is a few bone systems. We have a bone system for the spine, a bone system for the head, another one for the teeth, and one here for the base that will control the squash and stretch. We also have a helper object just so the bone will always look at this piece here. But we'll go over that here in a moment. So let's get started. We have a lot to cover. This may have to be divided into a two-part tutorial, as this one could get quite lengthy. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is, if you see our wireframe, it's all purple and different colors. We're just going to try and get this all back to one color. So we select the whole model. We'll go over here to name and color and just click on the color swatch here. Click that and we'll turn this to black. Okay, we're going to be working solely on creating a bone system for this character right now, so we're not going to need to be controlling him at all. So we're going to freeze this. To do that, we're going to right click, go to Object Properties. We're going to turn off Show Frozen in Gray so that we can still see it, and then we're going to click Freeze. So at this point you can see that we can't control this object at all. So we're going to go to our side view, and we're going to start with our first bone chain for the character. Hit F3, go into wireframe. We're going to go Animation, Bone Tools. And we're going to go to Create Bones. Alright, and the first bone that we're going to lay down is the one for the root. So we're just going to click on the canvas. We're going to click once here for the spine, another one for the spine, and then one for the neck. We're going to keep going and go right up to the head. We'll left click once, and that's going to be the end of our chain. So when we're done, we just hit right click, and it'll give us a little bone at the end. So just to go over what these bones are, they're more or less just objects that are controlled from top to bottom. So this bottom one will control everyone on top. The next one will control everything above it, and so forth. And the same with the last one, but it doesn't have anything under it, so it is the child of all of them. So this one is the parent, and the ones above it are the child, but this is now the parent of this child, so on. So what we're going to want to do is create another bone chain. This here will be for the teeth. We'll start right from where the teeth start on the model. We'll come out to about here. I'll maybe make a 3-chain system. And we're going to need to create another chain system here for the base. This will control the squash, so we'll click right in the middle, and we'll bring it right up to this base joint here. But what we're going to do is just, you don't have to be accurate, because we're just going to align it anyway. So left click, right click to end the system. With that child of this bone system selected, we'll hit Alt A, we'll click on the root, and we're just going to line it up in its XYZ position. And you'll see okay, it's not. Oh, I have to go to Bone Edit mode. When you're in Bone Edit mode, you can now control the system all by itself. Now it'll get like squash and stretch to it. If we didn't have that on, you'd only be able to control its XYZ position, but the length would stay the same, unless we set this up to a squishy bone, which we're going to anyways. But for now, we're just going to go to Bone Edit mode, and we're going to line this up to this system here. Line to XYZ. I gotta figure out why. Don't think we're actually aligning it to this bone. Oh, we are. Oh, we're lining it up to our pivots instead of the center of the bone. So just hit pivot, and set XYZ. Hit OK. Alright, so now we have all the bones that we're going to need for this system, but what we need to do now is start naming everything. So this can be a bit of a tedious process, but it needs to be done and often is overlooked. So this will be bone underscore squash base 01. And the reason why I put BN is because when we go into our hierarchy later on to select bones, we can just come up here into the Find tab and hit BN, and any bones that are in our system that are named correctly will be selected. This will be much easier for when we want to go add in our skin. So we can click on this bone that we have named, and you can just hit page down. It will move down the hierarchy for us. And this one here is an end bone, so we're going to call it bone squash end 01. And the reason why I define that it's an end is we don't bother skinning this to the system. It's more or less just to control the bone that's above it. Alright, so here we have bone underscore root 01. Press enter, press page down. This is our bone underscore spine 01. Enter page down. Underscore spine 02. Alright, this bone here is actually going to be our head. So bone underscore head 01. And the last one will be the head end bone. So bone underscore head end 01. Alright, we'll start with the teeth. So bone underscore teeth base 01. Bone underscore teeth 02. Bone underscore teeth 03. And bone underscore teeth end 01. Alright, perfect. So what we can do at this point is just maybe color correct them, get a little easier to see. So we'll click this system here. If we hold control and press page down, it will select everything that's underneath that node, anything that that bone can control. We'll just go over to the swatch on the right hand side here, and we'll just switch this to orange. We will do the same for the base here. Hold control, page down. We'll switch this up to red. And this main system in the middle, this will be green. So we'll press the root joint, hold control, page down, and switch the color to green. Okay, so we have a system here. We want to allow the head to stretch. But as of right now, this bone is controlled by the one underneath it. So what we want to happen is disconnect this bone from this bone, and then we'll add an end bone here, and then the control object is what will control the head joint for us, and it can actually pull itself away. But the IK, which will control the spine, will also be connected to the control object. So it may seem a little confusing right now, but we'll get to that. We're going to go ahead and break it. So as you can see now, it's completely independent. We're going to click this bone underneath, and we're going to go into the bone tools. So it's under animation, bone tools. Then we're going to create end. Alright, so this is going to be our bone underscore spine end. Alright, and if we want, we can just make this a darker green for the head, just a little easier for us to see. Okay? So next what we want to do is start creating the control object, start bringing this together. So what we're going to do is go to create, go to our perspective view here. We're going to create standard primitives torus. You can also do it over here in your tool panel, objects, geometry, standard primitives, go to torus. We'll just click and drag this out from the grid, just trying to line it up so we get the thickness that we want. We don't need a lot of geometry. We want to keep the control objects low in geometry, as the animator is going to be controlling a lot of characters in the scene, so the least amount of geometry, the better. Alright, so that should be good. We're going to line this up to center, so we'll right click on our move tool, and we can just right click on each of these scrolls here on the side, and that will set it back to 0, 0, 0. Alright, so in our side view, we now have our master control. We are going to press R. We're going to scale it down by holding Shift. Hit OK. And you'll see now that it's actually a little bit less thick, which is good. We want it to be defined a little bit differently than the master control. So that there will control the base for the squash. This one here will be for the root. You need one for the head bone. This will also control the head and the spine. We need 3 more controls for the teeth, so we'll rotate that down. And actually what we're going to want to do with this one is we're going to align it to this bone, so hit Alt A, click on that base bone there, make sure that our pivots are all lined up, so XYZ, and our positions are XYZ as well. But you can see it's lined up in the wrong direction. And, well, actually this could be the right direction. I want to get it turned the other way. But so we're going to go into our hierarchy tab, and we'll go down to affect objects. So instead of affecting pivot, we're only going to be affecting the object. So we can rotate all we want here, and it's still going to be following the axis of the bone. We'll just move this down, scale it up. Alright. Hold Shift, move this over and duplicate it. Make sure we're duplicating copies. And we'll line that up to the next bone. Again, XYZ, and line your orientation along XYZ as well. And you may want to affect this bone a little bit differently. Kind of center it up. Scale it down a tad. And we'll do the same thing for the last bone. So we'll duplicate it, hit Alt A, click on the last bone, make sure everything's lined up, XYZ on the orientation as well, and scale this down. And we can affect the pivot or the object as we see fit. Actually, it's probably in a pretty good spot. So we'll come out, take a look. Our control objects all seem to be accessible. So let's just color code these. This will be our base. We have, make this orange. Squash will be red. Our root will stay green, as will our neck. And then the teeth can turn, actually we'll just leave the teeth. Anything that's a control object that we're going to use will be green. The master object is defined differently so that we can move we'll know that it's the master. The red one is not something we're going to be controlling. It's going to be more or less a helper object to help show where the end of the bone is going to be. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and name these. So CTRL for control, master, 01. We're going to want CTRL underscore squash base, 01. CTRL squash, root, 01. Control for the head, and we gotta name the ones for the teeth. So CTRL underscore teeth 1. O2 for this one, and O3 for this last control. Alright, perfect. So at this point what we need to do is tell the program that these all have a little bit of history to them. They've been moved around and rotated and scaled. So we're just going to freeze all transforms and rotations on these. So we're going to hold Control and click on all these control objects. We're going to hold Alt. We're going to right click. We're going to freeze our transform. Hit Yes. We're going to hold Alt, right click, and freeze our rotation. So now what happens is, let's say the animator is moving around the characters in all these different positions. We want to get them back to the original position. Well, we could hit Control Z, but let's say they're just trying to get them back to the original pose and it's been too far along, they can't go back any more steps. What you can do is select every piece again, hold Alt, right click, and then you can go to Transform to 0. And everything goes back to the default position. And what we can do here, instead of clicking like on them every time, we'll just control click each of them once. And up here at the top of 3D Studio Max we have a create selection set. So we can just click in there and we can call this control. So anytime that we want to select all those again, we can just come up here to this tab, click once and click control, and whatever we have will be selected. Alright, so I'm going to pause the video and we're going to come back. In the next tutorial we're going to go ahead and create our IK chain. We're going to set up some position orient constraints so that we can have a stretchy head. We're going to tell this bone to be stretchy so that we can get some squash down there. And we're going to wrap up